All right, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, my quote-unquote perfect Fallout 4 build. Now, this is actually several builds based on different playstyles. You have those who lean heavily on V.A.T.S for their targeting and criticals, and you have those who prefer more of a shooter playstyle and just run and gun, all right? And then you have those who lean heavily on melee, all right? And so with that in mind, and also keep in mind that there is such a wide variety of gear in the game that there are a lot of legendary perks on guns and armor and stuff that might make some of the perks kind of irrelevant or less important than others, okay? So final tweaking of your build is going to vary from player to player, all right? So what these are starting special stats for those three particular play styles and how I feel you can optimize your character, all right? And tweak it a little bit to your own taste, but here we go. Now, before I get off into any of that, I want to cover one thing, and this is going to save you a lot of perk points if you want to be patient and you want to take advantage of the liberal loot system that's in the game, is that you do not need to invest in like armor and gun nut and stuff like that if you choose to be patient. Those are convenience perks, right? If you find a gun with a mod on it that you want, what you can do is replace that mod that you want with something baseline, like for example, here, I want this automatic receiver off this gun. I make a standard receiver in its place, and it will put that automatic receiver automatically in my inventory. All right? Now, it's only for a combat shotgun. It has to be identical matching gear. But once you find that piece of gear that has something you want on it, and say I want to transfer it to, say, a legendary weapon like this cryo shotgun here, okay? Well, now that that automatic receiver is in my inventory, I can go ahead and put it on this shotgun, even if I didn't have the gun nut rank to make it. All right? So there you go. Now, this would be my V.A.T.S build. These are the starting stats right here, okay? Notice strength is at 1 and endurance is 1. I'm not crazy, just hear me out, all right? Right here, you have 2 points to play with, and this is for personal taste, to put them into whatever, depending on your playstyle. If you're a V.A.T.S player, if you're into sniping, you might want to drop a couple into perception, and look forward to doing a little special training. If you can save all those points that you don't have to invest in, like, say, gun nut, and armor and whatever, right? Then you can afford to raise some of your special attributes a couple points as you go. Like, say if there's a perk that you really, really want way up there in the perception tree or the agility tree or the charisma tree, right? You can afford to get that. Remember, if you plan on using gun nut, armor, and say science, that's going to save you like between 8 and 12 perk points right there. That's 8 and 12 levels that you can spend in stuff that you want. Raising special stats, or even putting points into stuff that you might not otherwise have the points for. Toughness and what have you. Okay. Now, speaking of toughness, all right, endurance, in my opinion, the very first one, the very first perk, toughness, is the most important, all right? Sure enough, each consecutive point in endurance gives you a little bit more health. But to me, resistance overrides health. The things that you can resist. Radiation resistance, which you can put leaded in your gear. All right, energy resistance, which you can put energy resistance in your gear also, right? Just overall damage resistance, that really comes into play most of the time against all kinds of ballistics and stuff like that, okay? So having that is helpful. Having the other resistances is good too, but you also have buffs. You also have chems and meds and stuff like that can buff a lot of that too, all right? So keeping that in mind. That's why I say endurance isn't as important as you might think, all right? Now, with that in mind, for a shooter build, for someone who's going to run and gun, you might want to consider taking some of those points out of luck, right? And putting them in your endurance just for the little bit of added health and maybe getting up there to where you can have that radiation resistance, especially if you're just running around like a madman, spraying and praying and doing your thing and relying on your shooter skills, right? More than your V.A.T.S and stuff. Probably more SMGs and assault rifles as opposed to snipers are going to run around like this, okay? And in that case, I would say drop your luck to 2, all right? And there's a reason for that. Is about the only thing I would really need in the luck tree. Remember, sacrifices have to be made, especially early on at some point. The only one I'm really worried about in luck is Bloody Mess for the bonus damage, all right? I don't need to go any higher if I'm not going to be using V.A.T.S. Pretty much everything after that in luck is for criticals, saving criticals and stuff. And if you're not using V.A.T.S all the time and taking advantage of the heavy critical damage a lot, then no point in investing levels worth of perk points into that, unless you're such a high level that you just have points to throw away, and then you just do whatever, right? But this is to start the game. This is when you're talking to that vault-tec guy, or when you're about to leave the vault, where to start your special stats and why, all right? And the logic that I'm basically using, okay? There is an exception with a melee build, and we'll get into that in a little bit. being a little bit different. All right. So with each of these starting builds, it does give you a point or 2 or 3 to play with. And you might want to consider, when I say perfect build, I put that in quotes because I'm also thinking that a lot of players might want to include the role-playing aspect of the game. Not just doing more damage and taking less damage, but things like the charisma stat, which is much more relevant now. You might want to get to where you can start setting up your trading booths, or maybe get stronger followers earlier, which is going to require a much higher charisma. You can go ahead and drop a few extra points into there, right? And so there you go. Now with the melee build, believe it or not, I still don't dump a lot into endurance, and I don't dump a lot into strength either. You may think this is crazy, right? But melee build really relies on agility just as much as, say, a guns build does, right? And depending on if you're going to use VATS or not, then I'll leave what you do with your luck up to you. But this leaves you a few points to play with, okay? You might want to choose to put them in strength. I'll just throw them in here just for giggles. I personally wouldn't. You got to factor in, there are 7 bobbleheads in the game. So if you want, say, a 9 agility, all right, then you only need to put 8 points into agility because there is an agility bobblehead out there somewhere that you can grab. Okay, so in other words, subtract 1 from all your special attributes as far as what your target number is going to be. Like I say, you can also do special training later on top of that, right? Because you're going to have some extra points to do that with, okay? But your first 2 points in strength is really where most of your melee damage comes from. And then some other melee damage buffs come down there in agility. The later points in strength, for the most part, really seem to apply towards power armor geared characters. And if you're going to roll like that, you might want to take a lot of points out of agility, actually, and then roll down strength, and then maybe buff your agility later in the game to take advantage of some of that stuff. But I'll tell you what, Blitz down there towards the bottom of the agility tree seems like an almost must-have for a melee character. So really, for your unarmed and your melee, your first 2 points of strength is where you buff all that damage. Sure enough, each additional point of strength will give you a little extra melee damage, but the bulk of your damage comes from those first 2 points in strength, right? And then the rest seems to come out of agility, all right? Now with that in mind, if there's a strength bobblehead out of there, you never need to put a point into strength, even if you're a melee character, as crazy as that sounds, all right? At least not base level. Once you get to much higher level, and if you want to take care of some of that stuff that's way down the strength tree, drop 5 or 6 levels worth of points into just strength, right? Until you unlock that one particular level of strength that you need to put the points in, whatever, right? But still, regardless, I have factored into each one of these builds a charisma level that allows you to at least get your trader perks unlocked, where you can set up shops and set up supply lines and stuff between your settlements, all right? That's including the role-playing aspect of building settlements, right? And dealing with your NPCs and stuff like that, okay? Okay, so I'm throwing that in there. If that's of no interest to you, you can save a few points, drop to charisma to whatever perk that you really specifically want in the game. Maybe even take another point off, considering you're going to get a charisma bobblehead, all right? And then just roll like that, okay? But if that is important to you, having traders or even having tougher companions and stuff, okay, then you might want to consider a higher charisma. So those starting stats that you saw right there, all right, for VATS, non-VATS players, or ones who very rarely use VATS and it's not really worth investing points in, and then for those who choose to run with a melee build, those would be my starting special stats when you talk to that vault-tec guy right before you leave the vault. That's where I would personally set them. And then look for gear that has mods and stuff like that that you want as you go. Be patient, play the RPG, experience the game, loot stuff, and you'll get what you want. All right? And that, to me, is an optimal way to start your characters there. All right? So take that and run with it. Give me your 2 cents down there in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to subscribe, click that button up top, and I will catch you guys later. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.